Today, I'm going to talk about the library and the reusable components. And there I'm going to cover the use of reusability of the code across the industry and our experience in general. Let me start with a quick introduction of Click2Cloud. I hope the screen is fully visible and the video is not coming the way.
Yeah, it is clear.
Yes.
Okay. So quick background on the company. We are headquartered in India, and we have branch office in USA, Hong Kong, Japan, Canada, China, and various other locations. We have a very deep partnership with Huawei, especially FutureWay Huawei, and we do a lot of open source work in partnership with many of the telecoms. Several things we have achieved in our partnership with various open source companies, including Huawei's like Soda Foundation, which is focused on the storage-based system. Click2Cloud has been active partner on from the day one on many of the communities like OpenSDS. I have been personally being a board member on Redhat, have been on Openstack and several other initiatives. And today's topic is great topic because this is a launch of a community and an event, and I feel like really honored to be here, where a lot of co-followers or co-team members from other companies are here who are promoting open source communities in India. So, which is one of the vision, and I come from Nagpur. I always believed that Nagpur should be the cloud city of India, and that's the journey I'm driving through. And that's where our focus mainly was in the open source as well as in the infrastructure computing from the very beginning. You can see our journey. My last company that got acquired by HP was also the first private cloud between Microsoft and Linux-based OS. So many of the people who know that earlier Linux and Microsoft were two different operating systems and could not talk natively. So we build a feature which will allow the heterogeneous computing to work together. HP acquired that company back in 2015. And then Click2Cloud started working in the space. My affinity with open source is always there because any big company that has been built, whether it's Apple or Facebook or everything, has come from the background of open source. And when we are talking about the systems like Harmony OS or building some of the greater platform like Android, they have changed the world in itself. I remember like Apple has took some of the open source base and built on top of it. Google Android is an open source platform too, which has created a massive amount of ecosystem across the globe. We know Jelly Bean and other open source infrastructure. And currently, we are participating into this larger open source community where we want to work with different partners and want to grow. You can see on the screen that we have a series of open source commitment across the board, and throughout the presentation you will see. So I'm going to break my conversation into three pieces, like what is the open source, where the open source is, what's the opportunity for the people who are participating, and some technical area that how you can be a contributor into the open source area. I know there are already questions. We can come to that very quickly later, because I think I just want to use my 15-minute effectively. So we have been actively part of many open source combination like HashiCorp, Chef, Terraform, Ansible, which is mainly focused on building infrastructure. As you know, India is a big country. We need big infrastructure like roads and everything is moving to cloud. So you need to build the infrastructure from bare bone. And when you look at HashiCorp, Terraform, Chef, or Ansible, they are the one who actually allows you to build those infrastructure very quickly and very fast. I can't go much detail, so I will try to cover on the surface level as much as possible, but my information is there, my LinkedIn contact, so you can reach out to me. I will try as much as possible to answer your questions. Another is like the Cloud Native Foundation, which has Kubernetes infrastructure, again, which allows you to have cloud native base, microservices base, Kubernetes system, which is changing the world. I mean, we all remember the old days where Windows process were there, and now we are dealing with the microservices. That's why we are able to, when you imagine like a company like Uber, which is running an app, actually they are running like 20, 30 different apps at the same time. The moment you look at Uber, it connects and gets number of cars. It gets you, it also tells you like how far you are going to do. So it gets into the geospatial data. It starts the billing system. It informs the security. It allows you to see like who are the other drivers into the system. So actually it runs as a microservices parallel events. Then another group, that is Linux Foundation, which we work very closely and has a massive contribution to the community, where we work with OpenSDS, which is now called as Soda, and OpenPytrix, and we contribute to Centorius and Kubernetes infrastructure. I am a core member into the Kubernetes community itself. Then we got OpenStack, I guess millions and millions of open cloud deployment based on OpenStack. Jonathan and Bryce is like the two key people who drive it. We also contribute into the OpenStack community. Then Red Hat got acquired by IBM, 2637 billion something. And then we got series of other tools like Spinnaker, OpenPatrix, CloudForm, so on and so forth. All these communities are with one goal: how do we make cloud computing faster, quicker, and running on top of like any infrastructure, whether it is AMD, whether it is Intel based infrastructure, whether it is new Kungpen based infrastructure coming across the board. And we try to participate and see that how our company Click2Cloud can participate into these ecosystems with partners, companies that are out there. This is the quick view of our participation across the globe. One of the things I enjoy about the open source is meeting so many great people, so many great minds, young minds, people who have been in industry for long enough, college students, seasoned people, and you can see like different aspect of it. This one is my favorite picture because we participated with the China team in hackathon. Then we have like whole innovation per for India, where we built together. Okay, there is Selena Rupal from my team, and then we have this Mr. Bryce, who's the OpenStack contributor. The whole idea of these things is like it's like a family. Open source is a community plus family, which allows us to basically contribute, mentor others, get the mentorship, get the people who can guide us how to contribute to the and make it successful. And in return, there's not much expected out of you, or like all they care is like you contribute towards the success of other open source contributors. So it's a great momentum to be part of that. And it's all about all it's fun too. I mean, when you see on the pictures that we have several events, company like us want to sponsor those kind of things. We are planning a global hackathon again this year, mostly in April, which we'll share the link for all the potential people who want to join. A great way to learn how to be part of the open source community. Now, I'm going to talk about application library and reusability of application library. I have been hearing some of the talks on various topics, and I totally see that people are talking about different things. So I define current ecosystem into 5 or 6 parts. If you see today's applications on the mobile devices are focused on UI framework, the reusability of UI framework, the AI core, where you lead to image-based translations, auto translations, the companies like Mojo or TikTok or you name it, like that is, and then natural language processing. You have auto translations, different types of application, then smartphone based on telephony, call, messages, wearable sensors, which most of you wear to measure your calories, heart rate, so on and so forth, your fridge, refrigerator, whatever it is, which informs you about. And then the smart devices, like smart speaker, Alexa, or Hey Google, or Hey Mercedes, whatever you call it today, whatever vehicle you drive. And then the smart TVs like Samsung and the other TVs. So everything is turning into a smart. And Our philosophy is like this is not what core principle of human being. And what is the core principle of human being is one part of the brain does the discovery based on the five senses: the touch, feel, taste, smell, and see, and everything. And then we use the historical information from our birth to translate it into an AI, or sort of like a natural intelligence, NI. In computer world, the same discovery is done by camera, the audio listening devices are speakers and all those things. They capture all those data, and everything is getting close to what human beings are, at least like 40-50% close to what human beings can, except the emotion part, and touch and feel, probably smell also. But still there are many things that can measure, like Nest devices. So the devices are getting closer, and that's why the communities have to also become stronger in understanding these different aspects of the life. Well, what are the opportunities for the generation? I can see a tremendous opportunity growth in the current span time, especially the COVID. As I mentioned that why you want to be in open source. You don't just have to be developer to be an open source. You can be evangelist. Somebody was asking. You can be a speaker. You can be someone who can help with the event. You can start bringing people together. So there are many skills you can learn. You can create design. So you can be a designer, you can be an artist, you can be a singer, or you can be anyone, and still you can contribute to the open source community. Well, joining open source community to build your knowledge. These are the four largest community, and which we are participating, and we can help you to also be part of. One of them is Soda, which is my favorite because from the inception we are part of the Soda, and I have seen that from growing from a basic code base to now CLI, multi-cloud, and a storage-based foundation for so many large companies, and it continues to flourish. And Click2Cloud contributes with almost like 10 to 15 developer into that community, which I feel really proud because we took that as from the inception and brought it to a point where it's like a global community. Other communities are there where we have been contributing. Redhat is another favorite of mine. This has changed my life in some way because my first company was totally based on the Redhat Openshift infrastructure, where the company got acquired by HP. Then OpenStack and Linux Foundation, of course, are another two large systems which are allowing us. So we participate in OpenStack with Kata containers and new contributions in terms of Sender and some of the other plugins which are more technical. We can go on it sometime later. For the people who want to be part of any community, don't be shy, be a yes man, like simple things. Trust your beliefs. Don't be fearful about participating. There is nothing like you don't know or you know. It's like you will learn because everybody in some day have started somewhere. And one day I was driving in Uber from the airport, and I asked him like, "What do you do?" So he said like, "I contribute to a community." I was so much energized with the fact that the guy was not just a Uber driver, but actually was contributing to some of the open source systems. And then I asked him, how did you do it? He said, like, through mentorship, through friendship, through communication. I learned the coding, I learned some of the basic new things, and I'm able to now contribute. And I looked it up, Chris's profile when I was back home, and I could see some of the significant contribution from that. So um, just be out there. It's a great opportunity to be part of open source community. Are the companies hiring the graduates? That's a big question because it's a pandemic going on. So one of the thing, like, out of the pandemic came out, like most of the companies have almost like pushed the digital transformation to the next level. And recently we saw Satya Nadella's like that already the 2 years worth of work has been done in 2 months. And we also saw 775% increase in the cloud services. I'll try to just cover very quickly. Now, coming to the core topic, the reusable components. Like as a new user, what do you think about reusable components? So reusable components are the component that allows you to do low code, no code. Many of the computer science graduates or other graduates can quickly pick up the set of objects from there and start developing their own. I don't want to go into reading too many slides here, so I'll quickly get into like what are your options. Basically, it saves time, increase readability, all standard stuff. Again, I'm not going to go into it. One thing I will point out is this nice write-up from this young lady, Christina, which talks about reusability, especially in the Android world. And this document, I will highly encourage whoever trying to get it, step-by-step instructions on how do you reuse the code. It talks about the Java virtual machine. It talks about the Android virtual information. How do you take the code? How do you use the geospatial event? How do you try to overcome the integrated development environment aspect of it? All those things. It's a pretty 71 72 page document, but anyone who wants to get into open source development from scratch on the Android, I would highly recommend, because it talks about each and every aspect of it. I don't want to go too much into it, but this paper will give you a good understanding on reusability of the framework. How does the code works? How does the integrated development environment works? How do you actually run virtual devices? How do you run the SDK manager? How does the API SDK combination works in developing some complex application? And once you're part of the community, we are there. We are there to help you. We are there to support you in terms of developing some of the core applications, because that's how the community grows. We hold hand for each other and we help you build the applications to the next level. This is one of the things which we did in the pandemic, which we call it first response application for the Android devices. Simple concept, very useful, very powerful. Anytime any incidents happen or anybody needs any help across the community, all they have to download is the first response application. First response gathers all the first responders, whether it's ambulance, whether it is a organ donor, whether it's a plasma donor, whether it is a blood donor, whether it's finding a vaccine. All those things can be done in a centralized system. Again, it has various module, but the bottom line is we have reused a lot of codes that was available in the community. So there is a detail about it. I would recommend first reading the paper from Christina, which is from University of Austin, Texas, a very detailed paper, and then basically downloading our first response application, which has a step-by-step guidelines on how to develop your first open source application reusing the core components. That's all from my side. Thank you. I hope my information shared in this session was useful and open to the questions.
That was a wonderful session, Prashant. We have a question from the audience, a very general question, which says, after seeing the rise of WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, all the big FANG companies, what is the kind of impact it creates on the open source community? Don't you think it's a kind of a threat?
Well, Signal is an open source software, right? And as far as I know, uh, the Elon Musk is the guy who's been sort of like tooting it out and very gung ho about it. Like he's the one he talks about open source community. So WhatsApp and Telegram, yeah, they are proprietary software, but Signal is an open source software. You can download the code and you can yourself build Signal's detail about it. So I think even the communication platforms depends on massive amount of open source community. And every time when we see somebody is like creating a massive environment, there is like the warriors, I call them open source warrior. They will come up with something great which will be in parallel better, because none of the company has the amount of resources that open source community has. Open source community is like the warriors who come together in terms of 100,000 people coding for a single goal and also improvising. many of us are like hackers, many of us are like the people who are writing virus, who are part of the open source community. So the software in the open source is much stronger than the companies that who build the real software.
Thank you, Prashant. Hope Ramesh it answered your question. On to you, Kanak or Karthik.
Karthik, I think we cannot hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Prashant, for a lovely talk. You really spoke very passionately about reusability and libraries. And I'm sure everyone realizes the importance of reusability and reusable components. And you pointed out something very interesting when you said Microsoft has seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months, which is really great. We can imagine the scale of development using these open source communities in future. Thank you.
Well, you can see my passion that I'm joining 4 o'clock in the morning from US here from Seattle. So I'm always excited about the communities and the growth of the community, and especially I would like to see that Indian open source community brings like massive amount of contribution and some great leaders from the coming generations to participate into this big thing like application library environment.